Good evening, and welcome to The Parent Impact. I'm your host, Tafshier Cosby, and this is powered by the National Parents Union. Thank you for joining us tonight. You could have been anywhere in the world, you could have been surfing anywhere on the net, but you decided to join us, and we are happy to have you here with us tonight. It is, I think, 10 days till Christmas. So I have changed a little bit of my scape behind me. I have my grandkids have put up Christmas cards and things. They haven't been back. So I'm waiting for them to come back this weekend so they can put up all the decorations. And we did manage to put the tree up. We have the lights on it, and we're going to actually decorate it over the next few days. So happy holidays to everyone out here. It is the season of joy and a time to come together as family. Even if you can't be together in person, you can still come together on Zoom or in different ways. I always talk about this old fashioned thing we have here. You can actually call people on the phone and say, hey, how you doing, happy holidays. I'm old school, so I do put that out to people a lot to be able to call their families, but make sure you're checking in with your neighbors and checking in with your family members around this holiday time, just to let them know that you love them and you care about them and you're thinking about them. So, as usual, we're going to give some updates from Newark and the state of New Jersey. So that update is just one large update, right? We know what's happening right now is the vaccines are ready. That's been the buzz all week. We've been talking about the vaccines being ready from different places, different people giving their take on whether they will take the vaccine, whether they will not take the vaccine. We have some lawmakers here in New Jersey who have come together to say that they will be taking the vaccine. We have some families who said that they will not be taking the vaccine. So I think it's each family's preference as to how they feel about taking the vaccine. And I think no one should be made to feel any kind of way for their choice, right? Just like in education and just like as parents, what we always have, we have choice. So it's your family's choice to whether you want to take the vaccine or not. But in New Jersey, today in Newark at University Hospital, hundreds of New Jersey healthcare workers, they're receiving their first 2 doses of the coronavirus vaccine today, 286 days after the first case of coronavirus was reported here in the Garden State. Vaccinations again were given at University Hospital in Newark, and this is a day after Governor Phil Murphy announced that 4,805 New Jerseyans tested positive for COVID, and unfortunately 25 deaths have occurred in our state. So please be safe out there. Like I always tell everybody, please be careful. Please mask up. Please wash your hands. Please make sure that you are being careful when you are going out into the world. Please be careful in your house. Please make sure that anybody who comes to your house is also being careful. Check on your elderly neighbors. Check on people who have compromised immune systems. And just make sure that you're being safe. Like I said, for the vaccines, it's the family's choice whether they decide to take the vaccines or have any of their family members take the vaccine. And I just hope that everyone is getting the information that they need to make an educated choice of whether they want to have the vaccine or whether they do not. It is a personal choice. So please get the information that you need to make that educated choice. New Jersey families. So the second big thing that's happening is we are expecting, and I know a lot of people are not as happy as me, although I don't like it, we are expecting our first snowstorm to happen in New Jersey. So that is coming. That is supposed to be here tomorrow night. And if you live in New Jersey, right, I know a lot of people watching, they're from New Jersey, they live in New Jersey. We know that sometimes it's a false alarm, right? Sometimes they tell us we're going to get 24 inches of snow and we get like a dusting. But then sometimes they tell us we're going to get a dusting and we get 24 inches of snow. So we are expecting our first nor'easter. Everybody is hunkering down. I went to the store at 7:30 this morning to try and beat the rush. I was there until 9:30 this morning trying to get out and get all of my supplies, all of the snacks that I know I didn't need because I'm only really going to be in the house. I've been in the house. So why do I need these extra snacks? Because it's a snowstorm, right? You want to sit in the window, you want to watch the snow, and you want to eat your snacks. So I got all the extra snacks that I needed today. And I was at the store and we are expecting our first snowstorm. So there has been some controversy surrounding snow days, right? If we are virtual, if kids are virtual and they're remote learning, do they really need a snow day, right? It's not like they have to travel out or they have to go to the school. So I'm going to give my opinion, everybody. I don't have, little kids in the school. No, I don't have kids in K through 12, but I think we should give the kids a snow day. There it is. I said it. I think the kids deserve a snow day. Just a day off to go and run out and play in the snow, to really feel that snow day. I mean, that's the best part of living in the Northeast, right? That you get to have snow days. It snows, you go outside, you get your sled. I live across the street from a park. There's a hill. You see the kids running around, snowball fights and snow angels. So that's my take, everybody. I think that the kids should get a snow day if we get a lot of snow that's happening. So anyway, so I'm excited about my guest tonight. We actually saw each other earlier today, 2 times earlier today, actually. So this is our third time actually seeing each other today on Zoom, of course. We were not in person. The funny thing is we actually haven't had the pleasure of meeting each other in person yet. But I know that once we do have the opportunity that we will get together and we will be having great conversations, because we are both policy wonks and we love talking policy. We love talking about families. And that is our topic for tonight. We're going to be talking about parents in policymaking and the importance of parents being in the process of policymaking. So please welcome my guest tonight, Mrs. Ashley Bencan, who is the Director of Policy for JerseyCan. Hey, Ashley.
Hi, everyone.
How are
Thanks
you?
for having me. I'm doing great.
Here.
This
I'm
is
glad
so
we had a chance
exciting.
to see each other more than once today. So it's like we've literally been seeing each other all day today. And like this is like our third meeting for the day. We met like in the morning and then the afternoon, and now here we are at night together. So
You know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you. So we like to ask our guests how they're doing. How are you? How is your family holding up in this COVID-19 situation?
We're doing okay, right?
Okay.
We are completely lucky and blessed. We have our health. I have my job. My husband has his job. We have not come close to feeling the stress, the economic stress, the safety stress that so many families and parents have felt. We have definitely felt the other stresses, though, right? I think lack of our usual community, and we're people. So that energy from being around others, we've definitely gotten a deeper appreciation for our group. The usual people, our families that aren't close by, that we could just hop on a plane and go see. So kids are good. I have 3 kids: 3-year-old, 6-year-old, 8-year-old. We have hybrid and in person. So my preschoolers they've been doing great. No issues. Mass all day. Everybody's doing well. Can't, knock on wood. Yep.
Knock on wood.
And, but I think they were just starting to get to enjoy school, right? It was that very new feeling in first grade and kindergarten. And so now first grade and second grade, not having those normal things, and little annoyances, like having to wait for snack time. I'm starting to hear it now, right? It was okay in the beginning, but now it's like they're getting tired of it. And so we try to just keep it normal any other way we can. We try to get outside, go to the park. Like you're saying, we're excited about the snowstorm, right?
Yeah. Go outside and run around in some snow.
Yep. If it's going to be cold, let's go all in, make it snow, and let's really enjoy it. So,
especially with little ones. It's hard, especially with little ones, especially when they're moving from, something like kindergarten to first grade, or fifth grade to, 8th grade, or like 8th grade to 9th grade. Those transition years have really become difficult for a lot of families, and they really want to make sure, their kids are having the best experiences while they're doing this, the best possible experience they can, even remote learning. They're just really trying to make sure that that's happening for their kids. So I know you've been in, the education space for a while. Were you part of the education advocacy space before you had children? And if you were, how is it different now that you have children when you're thinking about policy and making policies for education?
Great question. So a little bit about me quickly. I taught in North Philadelphia, middle school, 8th grade English and social studies. And I definitely had a new appreciation for what I did after I had children. I think, but ironically, when I did get pregnant, the school I worked in didn't have good systems in place, right, to support my students when I would have been on maternity leave. So I ended up making the choice of leaving the classroom so that they would just have a position instead of, a rotating sub or being split up for, 8 weeks, let alone I take longer kind of thing. And so, but what shocked me is when I told, coworkers that I was going to have a baby and we were so excited, they were like, "Oh, you're in the perfect job. You're in the perfect job to have a family." And I was like, I don't know how I would do this job and have young children. Like, there's so many children, there's so many things to focus on. So I think the answer is yes. Like, I've always been an advocate for education because I was in it and frustrated by it. And then once I had children, it like shifted my advocacy
Right.
to a deeper level where sometimes I need to put on my teacher hat and represent those voices and the change that should happen there. And then I put on my parent hat and I'm talking to teachers and I'm like, I want to know how you're doing this, this, and this, right? Because I was in your shoes. So tell me what your plan is. And so I think, yeah, it's both. The more experience you get, I think it just continues to improve what a great advocate you can be. And how far you can go. And the more parents that share their strength with other parents and kind of give them that confidence to ask those hard questions and, to not just be okay with the status quo. Cause your kid only gets 18 years of school once, right? Like, there's only one chance. They don't get to redo it over and over.
That's right. And we as parents need to make sure that we're monitoring the experience they're having, the education they're receiving. Like you said, they only get to do it once. So we have to be diligent in making sure that we are using our voices and we are having these conversations and we are doing things like focusing on things like policy, right?
Yep.
So tell us a little bit more about your background in education advocacy. I know you work for Jersey Can now, which I love. Hey, Patricia. Hey, Jane Ellen. So tell us a little bit more about your background in education advocacy.
You got it. So I graduated from college and went right into the classroom. I was an alternate route teacher, so trial by fire, and that it was my first year of teaching. Like I was saying before, as I started to kind of get frustrated that I didn't have a voice as a teacher to influence the policy that was coming down to me, I started seeking out opportunities and trying to find how can I expand my impact? How can I be a part of those solutions instead of, just being angry? So I left the classroom and joined the New Jersey Department of Education. Wore 1,000 hats there. I worked in the teacher prep space certification office, did a lot of work learning procurement and all the bureaucratic things that happen behind the doors that once you do write that policy, how does it actually hit the ground? How does it finally reach kids? A lot of stakeholder engagement, parent engagement, family engagement, principals, superintendents, learned how the world works kind of from the department standpoint. And now in the last year, I've gotten a chance to kind of step out on the other side, meet fantastic people like you and so many other folks that have a completely different vantage point. And I think now, it's kind of painting like a broader picture around who's not at the table, who should be there, how quickly policy can be made, how slow policy, it might take to actually get policy across the line, and just how important really good relationships are, and making sure that, data and relationships, because I'm a big data person. So I think both of those things need to go hand in hand. I think, but you're right. All of those experiences that I just talked about, I think really like deepened my passion for advocating for just a better education system for all kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's a lot that you've done, right? Like you've learned, like you said, Department of Education, you've learned a lot behind the scenes, and now working with Jersey Can, you're on the other side. I know for me, when I was in the UCAN program for 50 Can, my lens was completely through a parent lens, right? It was funny because Darrell was actually one of my trainers when we were there, and when we finished the program, he's like, Tafshier, what did you learn? because he was like, you were an advocate before you got here. You had a voice, you were out there in the community. And he was like, what did we teach you at 50 Can? And the thing that I learned was that you have to be part of coalitions. You have to bring all the stakeholders' voices to the table, right? You can't just be the parent in the space, like trying to do this on your own. You really have to make sure that you're working with the right people, that you're power mapping, that you're bringing other voices to the table, and as many stakeholders as you can to really build that education advocacy agenda and campaign. Because without it, then you're kind of like out here by yourself, making noise, but you're not actually getting anything done. So thank you, Darrell, for that. I still remember that, Darrell, from 2016, right? I mean, and it's always in the back of my mind how, we need to make sure that we're bringing all the correct stakeholders to the table to use their voices, right? The parents, the students, the teachers, the business people, everybody needs to be at the table, especially when we're talking about policy, because it does take everybody's voices, and it does take people knowing about what it is that they're doing to be able to move these things forward. So talk to us a little bit about the difference between, a bill, a policy, and a regulation. Because I know it took me a while to kind of like figure out like, okay, what is the difference between like these three things?
You got it. So, and I'm so glad you asked, because I think so many people, teachers included, there's no class or, like this is the time where we get to share that information with people so they can better understand. So, let's start with a bill. So a bill is a law from, if you think of it at the top, we've got federal laws and you have state laws, and those are designed and created through the legislature and, the governor, or, the president, and the Senate and the House, and at the federal level. And so those laws, again, if they're federal, affect all 50 states. And then typically the law is written in a way to make sure states can now implement it. So they have to do something to implement that law. And then there's probably bills at the state level to implement that law. And then it keeps going down. When you start with a bill at the state level, similar idea, here's this goal. We want to create a free lunch program. Right. Great. We're going to write a bill that says by this date, we want a free lunch program to all, students in the state of New Jersey. Now we're going to task somebody with that. So we might tag a different department and say, now you, Department of Children and Family, Department of Education, work together and design, the rules of said lunch program. Right. And so that takes us to regulations. So regulations are typically at the department level, where in New Jersey, we have a state board of education who will review the proposed regulations that staff at the department draft and write, that very often include stakeholder feedback. In all of my experience, which it was 7 years, so I'm sure there were plenty of times where I wasn't there and it didn't happen. However, in my experience, there was always deep stakeholder engagement to inform those regulations. And then as the state board's weighing in, reviewing those regulations, those are the way a law is going to be implemented. So they are giving those like deeper details for the people that are in the details and they want to operationalize something. The regulations have a lot more details. But then that next level, which the department will then put out more, is kind of like guidance and policy, right? So let's take this idea of a statewide school lunch program. So they write the bill, governor signs it. Now the department and the Department of Children and Family and Department of Ed need to say, here's how we're going to do this school lunch program across the state. We're going to tell districts, you have to send us your numbers by this date. Right. And then we're going to connect you to a vendor who's going to provide these lunches and blah, blah, here you go. So those details were written. And then it's up to the districts to effectuate or create local policies so that then they can communicate to their parents and families and teachers, everyone in their school community. Here's how we're going to get you access to the statewide school lunch program that, went into law 2 years ago, because it took 2 years to make sure the money, the rules, and the policies all are in place, to make sure that meal hits the table. But it's that trickle down effect. And you don't have to start from the top, right? Districts have lots of control to kind of change and improve different policies on another day, different topic. Have me back. We can talk about teacher prep stuff all day, especially diversifying the workforce, all that. But there's a lot that districts can do. And then there's sometimes you want the rules to change at the top.
Right. Absolutely. And thank you for that. I just wanted to, give a quick tutorial. We're going to have opportunities to go a deeper dive, for families to really learn about this, because I think families do have a lot on their plate right now, right? Especially with COVID and everything that's happening. Top of mind is making sure that your family is safe, making sure that your bills are paid. We have families that don't have jobs, or kids are really struggling on remote learning, or we have the digital divide, right? Some families don't have connectivity or don't have enough connectivity. So we know that there are some things that are happening in families that are top of mind. But things like creating policies and making sure that we're following policies and that we're engaged, at least in the policy conversation, are also important to really, as parents, to really keep focus of, right? I do a weekly brunch, a bi-weekly brunch and chat. So on our brunch and chat, the first thing we talk about is, how we're doing, how's everybody? We connect with each other. It's one of the best times that we have every 2 weeks, where we get to see each other, we get to talk to each other, but then we go right into policy, right? I give an update about what's happening at the state, right? And then for parents, for us, the main thing that we want to know is, like, how does this affect me? How does this affect my child, right? Because when you talk about parents and advocacy, when you're talking about parents who become advocates, it's first about their child, right? How does this affect my child? What does my child's education look like? What does my child's experience look like? And then as you build yourself out and become more of an advocate for all children, then you start thinking about, how does this policy or law affect all the kids of the state, right? New Jersey has 555 school districts, like, that's a lot of kids to be making policies and regulations regarding. That's a lot of families that you're talking about. So, I want parents to think about the lens of their child, but I also want them to start thinking about the lens of, let's start making these decisions for every child in New Jersey, right? Every child that attends those 555 school districts, be it charter, traditional, private, however your child is educated. Let's start thinking about ways that we, speaking of son, there's my son calling me now. Let's start thinking about ways that we as parents and advocates can really start to look at some of these policies and start to learn more about them, but also get more engaged, right? Get more engaged in these conversations about policy. So
I was just going to add real
Mhm.
fast. I think sometimes the missing link too is understanding the policy, because it can be super jargony, not translatable, and really hard for lots of people, to really dig in and understand how to make that connection, like you just said, right? How does this affect my student, my child? And then if you were lucky enough to understand and be able to translate all that jargon, then think about others. And I think that's almost one of the most important, aspects of policy that gets understated, right? Is the what next? Now let's make sure everybody gets it. Everybody understands it. How do we spread the word, right? How do we make sure that this great idea finally can hit the streets and people can get the benefits of it?
Exactly.
That's not the sexy part that people don't want to talk about, but I think it's so important.
That is the sexy part. I mean, I've a truth moment, right? Honestly, I've been to, the state board meetings, and like I said, I'm a policy wonk. I love listening to, talk about policies and talk about regulations, and, some of the departments, some of the different people are describing like changes that are being made to different things. And sometimes the change is only one word, and it's like, it's changed to like and you think about like the minutia of that. You're like, the minutia of just having to change this one word, but that one word is going to make a huge difference when you're talking about the education and the lives of children. So, the people who do this, a lot of them, they love to do this. They love to change that one word, which is going to make a huge difference and change the lives for families across the state of New Jersey. So I'm like, I'm in here with y'all. Like, I'm in here. I'm down. But those meetings sometimes, I mean, sometimes they can be a little boring, but I'm there. I'm with them. I'm with them. So, we talk about different stakeholders at the table and who it takes as stakeholders to really make sure that we are writing policy and passing policy and lobbying for policy and advocating for policy. Why is it important for parents in particular to learn more about policies and the whole process of policy making?
I mean, so many things. I think one, it's important that the questions that you should be asking your child's teacher, right? Starting really small with just, you and your teacher. What do you deserve, right? Like you have no idea, because teaching is each classroom is unique. Every teacher's style is so different. It's hard to know what you're missing or what you're getting, and you didn't even realize it, right? Relatively speaking. So I think what's so important is that you understand what generally is supposed to be happening, so then you can learn and understand better. I think a funny story pops up in my brain. I remember my mom saying, I was a wonderful student. My brother and sister were also very wonderful students, to the point where I asked for more homework. They were like, nah, we're good. But my mom told me that one day she goes into a conference and, the teachers were like, oh, Ashley's great, yada, yada, right? And she's like, yeah, I know. I don't want you to give her any more homework. It was one of those moments where I don't even think she saw herself as an advocate, but it was one of those moments where she's like, I see my child is like doing whatever you tell her to do and more, right? I need you to not give her homework when it's a break. And it was that and I think about that story still today, where, when I was in the classroom and I was assigning homework and all these things, where that balance is, a teacher has no idea, right? Like what happens after you leave the classroom, and it is up to the parent to share some of that story and bring that other side. I know my daughter, the 6-year-old, she loves school. She will never have a bad day. Every day is a perfect day. But if she has a bad day at home, she's like, oh, no, don't worry, mom. I don't have bad days at school. So there's a different piece that's happening. And now that we're in this remote learning environment, she has school at home. Sometimes, she's not the same self that goes to school. So I think going back to answer your question, it's so important because you don't know the questions that you should be asking. So understanding the policies that are in place to provide that equal, equitable education are critical, number one. Number two, I think when you want to stand up for your neighbor, right? Or, another kid down the street, or your friends of your kids, who maybe you start to notice through play dates or other opportunities where they're not themselves, things aren't really the same, parents have that intuition, not just for their own kids, for lots of kids. And so I think being a partner to other parents is super important. You might have it under control and be like, yeah, I'm good, Ashley, right? I know what to ask, but other parents don't. And I think there's almost this culture of, don't be a nag over here. Right. That's right. I'm good. I'm not going to say a word.
Exactly.
And then if I'm not good, all of a sudden, I'm being burdensome, or I am I feel uncomfortable asking because I just don't know, what they say or and honestly, if it doesn't start with a transparent conversation, then I think that's a real shame. And so, I think those are the two things, is parents see a whole different lens that teachers don't. Exactly. And so we have to bring that to the table, and knowing the policies when you might get an answer that you don't like is what's going to help you be able to get your child what they need. And I think, and we have to empower each other, right? Just like you were saying before, if I'm by myself in a PTO meeting, it's only Ashley's problem, right? It's only what I think suddenly, if I want something to change, or I want to be a part of something, or join a group or whatever. But if I brought 5 moms or 5 dads with me, which by the way, lesson of this whole pandemic, some data that came out early on is dads were more involved early on. Dads were shocked that school was so interesting and challenging. I will push the study out to everybody. But that was one of my big takeaways. All of a sudden, dads were more aware of what's happening, which is so huge, because when we talk about parents, I mean, all kinds of parents, grandparents, custodians, you name it, all kinds of parents. But the ones that traditionally have not been at home or help with homework or whomever they may be, this suddenly brought them to the table too, right? Yes. They were at home instead of at their place of work. And I think, opening everyone's eyes and bringing all voices to the table, whether you're a grandparent taking care of a student, or a foster parent, or a dad who didn't know what was going on because you have somebody else taking care of it. Okay. I think
a greater lens, right?
That's right.
I keep saying that, I think this definitely brought a greater lens for parents to focus on what what their kids are doing, like actually what their kids are doing, right? I'm not saying that, there weren't parents that were focused before, but I think this has allowed all parents now to really hone in on what's happening with their kids, right? Is your kid on grade level, reading level, right? Is your kid be able to do that math work that was assigned before? And because you're there, because you're right there, it's like, like I didn't know this about my child before. And I'm super stoked that dads are in the conversation. We always talk about bringing more dads to the conversation. I love when dads are in the conversation. Dads bring such a passion and a fire. They're just like, that's my kid, and I want to know all the things about all the things. Tell me all the things. Like I love, and I love that. I love that dads are coming to the table. So please definitely pass on that stat.
Totally.
Make sure that we let our audience know about those stats. So dads, if you're out there, come on in. You are welcome. Come
That's
on in.
right.
Come to the table, dads. Come on in. So
And
we have
keep
a
up the good
question.
work.
Yes, keep it going, dads. We have a question from one of our favorite teachers and advocates from New Jersey, Tommy Luna. Hey, Tommy. He asks, what does the educational landscape look like this year and next year with COVID? In your opinion, what does that look like? I know,
I don't
I
want to get
know.
in trouble, but I also want to be honest. So I think this is a real moment
Yeah.
that I know I'm talking to parents who might not understand. So I'm going to take it a little bit slower than I normally do. People have been trying to improve education for a long time,
Yes, we
right?
have.
There has been lots of different types of policy changes. And what I'm seeing is that similar to fashion, some things just kind of cycle, right? Denim jackets come back, right? Like there are things that just keep going and coming back. It stopped and then you pick it back up.
Right.
And as those changes were happening, I feel like there became two groups, right? Where we got to reform it and fix it and just make it better. And we're going to just change policy constantly to keep making it better. And then there's others that were like, there's nothing wrong. We're going to keep it the same. And those, this constant tension between those two worlds is what has been perpetuated up until COVID. And then suddenly, I remember the day I had a phone call with a colleague who I respect and trust. And I asked her, I was like, who do you think is going to step up to the plate first, right? In this moment, and sees that this time when we all need to work together.
Yes, we
I
do.
was a part of calls where there's 30 different state leaders on the phone in a Zoom call, which would have taken months to plan to get them all in the same place at the same exact time. And magically, like this, because of COVID, they could be in the same place. And the question was, what is happening? How are our students doing? What is happening on the ground? There was no way to understand how schools were pivoting, what was working, how we're serving all of the different needs of our students from, all the services that schools provide, right? How do we maintain some of those lifelines and the academic focus? And then as the months kind of ebbed on, I think people started to get their footing, right? Whether you're on the reformy end, I'm going to just fix and fix and fix, or I'm going to just stand strong and stay my course. And they started to get their footing and realize, okay, here are the things that kind of matched our old mantras. We're going to double down on those old things. So some people, I think, started to say, go back to that mantra of like, assessments are really bad. And I think that's a thing that we're starting to see play out right now. This old mantra of assessments are bad because, they take too much time away from learning is now up against this not knowing anything, not knowing what interventions actually worked. And so it's a long-winded answer to say, I think right now, if we don't all come together and have a common value set of, we want our students to get what they need. We realize that education designed 100 years ago was not designed with specific people and communities in mind first.
Agreed.
And if we design it like that now, everybody else will be included, right? Like if we think of the lowest common denominator, the people that need a lot of things that the system doesn't provide right now, if we focus on those communities and those students first, and we design a system that meets their needs, everybody else is going to get their needs and more. We aren't even going to realize so many other kids are going to get so many other things. But it's going to take these two groups right? Working together, not against each other, working together to realize this vision. And I keep saying it too, our systems aren't good right now, right? Our systems were only okay before because they were working for this old design. So what this pandemic showed us is we don't have nearly enough data actually about all the great work that's happening. We don't
Exactly.
have any kind of system that tells us what's working and what's great, and or allows us to kind of pivot
Right.
when, I mean, beyond this, yeah, school days, I mean, let's be real. It's going to be an asynchronous day. People are going to get their work done and then they're going to have a snow day. And I think that's the best thing that ever happened, right? Or we're going to pivot to year-round schooling that's been around for like 30 years in pockets of the country. But finally, and this is what I think selfishly, Tommy pushed back. I burned out as a teacher every fall, every spring. If you spread those 180 days across so that teachers are not burned out and like, counting the days until each break.
Yeah.
What a wonderful time, right? And then all of those clubs and community programs, like they're spread out throughout the year instead of an 8-week chunk, right? They're making money all year round.
Right. Right.
And again, I think that's redesigning this piece, and we can't do it without each other. We can't
Absolutely.
do it without teachers. We can't do it without the parents. We can't do it without the people that know policy inside and out.
Right.
And I think, and we
And
can't
the
do it
voice of the
with
students.
thank
And
you.
the voices of the students.
Thank you. And if anything, I think that's the last piece. Like I'm now really leery of people talking about students without having student voice at the table.
Yes.
I think there's a piece here where students, I mean, where's a child development, psychologist to tell me what's right or wrong? But like my 3-year-old can tell me how her day went using a color, right?
Right.
There
Right.
we go. Tell me, Gabby, right? So there is an age level where I know kids can be critical in a positive way that provides useful information. And that could just help your classroom or it could help the whole school, right?
Right.
There's really good information that they can share. And then as you get older, I'm sure you and I were very similar. Like we're critical thinkers. As an 8th grader, I knew who was a great teacher. I knew who was great. I knew
Yep.
who was helpful. I would have easily listened to parents and other teachers and school leaders and said, "Give me your problem. Let's
Right.
solve it."
Let's work it out. Exactly.
That's right. So if we don't make new policy focused on students that have the most needs first,
Right.
with the voices of students, parents, teachers, school leaders, policymakers, unions, everybody at the table, and we stop kind of like doubling down on what we like to double down on,
Right.
Otherwise we're just going to keep it, batting each other back and forth. And so I get nervous because I want that kumbaya moment. Not that everyone has to like each other, but for this sole purpose that we all want kids to learn better. So
Exactly.
I'm going to be the eternal optimist.
Everything should be for the children, right? Like we're talking about, like you said at the beginning of the show. We only get 18 years for these kids to be in school. We don't have time to waste. We don't have time to keep going back and forth. I'm right, you're right. We need to figure out a way to come together, like you said, write these policies, bring all the stakeholders to the table. And really, right now is the perfect moment to revamp the education system. It's the perfect moment. We think about the calendar, right? Tommy and I talked about this when this actually first started happening, right? With need. Shout out to North for Educational Equity and Diversity. Shout out to my co-chairs and all my people there. We talked about this. We talked about the calendar, right? Why the calendar is the way it is. Why do we start school in September and kids finish in the springtime, right? It was because they had to help their families with the harvest. Right. I don't know any farmers right now in my community. I don't know any kids who have to help their family harvest the next harvest of the next season. So now is literally the perfect time for everyone to start thinking about how do we revamp education? How do we make it better? How do we make it more equitable? How do we make it, something that the kids are the end users of this product, right? I mean, it's a product called education. They're the end users. But a lot of times we leave their voices out of the conversation. And especially for the high school students, we're working with a group of high school students now. Shout out to our YLAs. These kids are amazing. They are amazing. They have, such strength. They really know what they want to advocate around. They know what they want to see in their schools. And they were just so happy that like we created the program and for someone to be able to listen to them. They were like, we're not being listened to. And this also takes me back to, again, the policy which I've been following now for the state of New Jersey. I think it's going through the second reading. I think it's going to go through the third reading for a student to be on every single school board. Why are students not on the school board? This is their education. They're the end users of this. They should have an opportunity to talk about what's working for them, what's not working for them, and ideas that they have for things that can work for them, because they are the ones that are receiving this and they are the ones that have to do this.
Exactly. So. Genius. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, even doing something like year-round schooling, like, yeah, it's going to be hard, right? Like we can't say that any of this kind of change is going to be easy. Right. But I think there's more than enough people that you and I know just by ourselves that can problem solve, can come together, can reach out and solve all of those different challenges that I've read that is why we won't do year-round schooling, right? I played 2 sports. I was a soccer player and a swimmer, and I went to a D2 school on scholarship. I know that I still could have accomplished that even with year-round schooling, depending on the way that you design it. Right. These two are not mutually exclusive. We can solve that problem, right? And I'm loving Glennon Doyle's we can do hard things. This is one of the hardest things I think we're ever going to do. Yes, it will have the most important impact that will speak for generations. And anyway, yes, I'm with you. Anybody else want to join us? Let's do it.
I think Sophia wants to join us. She says students in North Carolina attend school year round. Many live in farming communities there, and it works. They live in farming communities, and it still works. So, Sophia,
Virginia too. That's right.
Let's get down with it. So, speaking of impact, right? This is Parent Impact. So we like to ask our guests, we're coming kind of towards the end of the show. So we like to ask our guests towards the end, what is your parent impact? Like, what do you think your parent impact is?
I feel like I just started my parent advocacy journey. Here's a good one. Okay. If my husband was here, he'd be like, you were so nosy, but I did it and I'm proud of it. My son, second grade this year, his teacher shifted in the beginning once they went to hybrid, and he got a new teacher who thankfully had been in the building before, so kind of generally knew how things operated, brand new teacher, and Mr. Topping. And so I'm trying not to, creep too much in the Zoom calls, but want to meet him, haven't seen it, not sure who he is. And so I've asked Jackson, how's it going? He loves him. I'm like, we're so happy, that you're here. Shoot him an email. I just want to say thank you so much. My son's so excited to have a male teacher. Come to find out he was a male teacher of color on top of it. I wanted to make sure that he knew how supportive we were of him being in our school community. I went as far as to say, I hope that you've gotten the support that you need. You know me, Tafshier, and the work that I've done with teacher work. I know there are plenty of teachers of color that do not get the support that they need, and that's why they do not stay. He is one of the only teachers of color in our entire school. Wow. And so it's this moment where I said, I want to make sure the principal knows how valuable I think and our family thinks you are to this school community, but I just want to talk to you first so that you didn't, somehow hear that a parent emailed the principal. Right. And so I sent that email, and then I followed up quickly because I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to just sing praises. I'm going to hold him accountable too. Right. I wasn't happy that I haven't gotten enough communication. I'm like, how do you even know if anything is working? So I went out on a limb and was like, can I make 2 surveys for you? I was a teacher. Take it or leave it, but I'm going to make you a parent survey and I'm going to make you a student survey. Have at it. Very broad, very generic. All it will do is tell you what your parents are thinking and what
Right.
your students are thinking.
Right.
And he pushed it out, and I was so excited.
Yes.
I
Yes.
know that was so little, but like I was very nervous. I was nervous that I was overstepping. I was nervous that like somehow it would impact Jackson in a negative way, which I would never want.
Right.
But it
Right.
didn't. And you know what? At the end of the day, Jackson was very glad that he could tell Mr. Topping that he already knew some things that he was teaching. And
Right.
there you go. You can adapt and learn, right? Like,
Right.
so
Right.
thanks for
Yep.
asking. Yes,
Yep.
it was a little proud moment this year.
Absolutely. So, you took the initiative as a parent and you're like, I'm going to help you, right? Be able to get this information, gather this information from parents, gather information from students, which helps make him a better teacher, right? And which actually helps to make the educational experience for the kid, and it helps the families because they like, yes, now the teacher knows what I think, now they know what I feel. They can really tailor more things to our children the way we want them to see. And it makes parents feel, it makes us feel good as parents when someone's asking us our opinion. We
That's
talk
right.
about that all the time, even, for our clapback that we're having in January and the one we had for November for the National Parents Union. A lot of times parents aren't asked what we think. Our survey results showed us 50% of parents across the country are not being asked about reopening plans. They're not being asked about what they think about what's happening within their schools. And that has to stop. That absolutely has to stop. Parents need to be
100%.
part of these conversations. Absolutely. So thank you, Sophia. Good for you, Ashley. Good for the teacher being open. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for the encouragement.
So where can our viewers learn more about you and maybe connect more with you? You and I will be in contact with each other. We're going to be doing lots of amazing policy work come January. Viewers, please stay tuned. We are going to be doing some amazing things with policy and parents. So please make sure that you connect with us through the Parent Impact. So how can people connect with you?
Sadly, I have not gotten onto Twitter. It's silly. I haven't come up with a good handle. So someone shoot me a handle and we'll get on there. But I'm on LinkedIn. I enjoy LinkedIn. And my email. I mean, is that bad to give people your email? Like,
No, if you
my
want.
email is cool. Yeah. AshleyBenkin@gmail.com or ashley.benkin@jerseycan.org. So either or.
Awesome.
And would love to hear from everyone.
Absolutely. You can also get some great information at the Jersey Can website. There's some really great information about a new report that was just sent out, which Jersey Can was part of. So tell us a little bit about the report before we go. That's on the Jersey Can site.
Thank you. Yeah, so we polled about 600 New Jersey parents to ask, right? Just like we were talking about. How is it going? How did it go in the spring? What are the needs that aren't being met right now? Help us understand and try to make sure that we can connect, policy solutions to those needs. Right. And then, I know we just talked quickly about teachers. We did a big teacher report over the summer as well that you'll find on our site because we don't have enough teachers for our kids right now. And so we want to elevate the profession. We want to make it the profession that people are going to school for. And we know that's a tall order right now because it's been a long, long, long time since people, I think, embraced teaching as a profession and something they wanted to do. So we're also deeply committed to that.
Well, thank you for all the work that you've been doing, and thank you for all the conversations that we've had. And I know we're going to have many, many more. And also the report on the Jersey Can website that was also in conjunction with New Jersey Children's Foundation, and thank them for all the work that they're doing out here, really making sure that data is being shared throughout New Jersey and throughout the country about the voices of parents, the voices of students, the voices of teachers, making sure that the stakeholders are really in these conversations that we're having surrounding our children's education. So thank you again, Ashley. This was so awesome having you on the show. Thank you so much for taking your time.
You got it.
We'll be in touch soon, and we're definitely going to have you back in the new year so we can talk more about policy and be here like geeks and wonks. Just really talking about everything that we did talk about, and really making sure that we're engaging our families in these conversations. Like I said, I know they have a lot going on, but we need to really stay focused on these conversations. So thank you for your time.
Thank you again. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. So this was another great episode of The Parent Impact. Again, I want to thank Ashley Rankin for coming and talking about policy and why it's important for different stakeholders to be at the table when we're talking about policy. Stay tuned for more information about different policies and things that parents can be involved in, ways more parents can get involved in policies. Please make sure that you are signing up for our town hall, National Parents Union. Register for the January town hall. It's called Parents Clap Back. It's on the National Parents Union site. This is the link here. You can also go on the site to sign up. Again, opportunity for parents to be in the conversation, to talk about what we need to say, what's happening with our kids, what's happening with education, the authentic voices of parents across the nation, right? We are parents. This is lived experience, right? This is not things that the things we talk about aren't things that we have not been through as parents. We want to make sure that other parents are also part of those conversations. Please join the National Parents Union. The membership link is also on the website. If you want to know more about us at The Parent Impact, check us out on Facebook at The Parent Impact and on Twitter at parent_impact, or you can check us out www.parentimpact.org. And just, connect with us. We want you to connect with us. This is almost our last show for this year. I can't believe that we've been doing this show for so long this year. It's been so amazing. It's been an amazing platform to be able to share, to be able to connect with families, to really talk with families about what's happening in New Jersey, what's happening in Newark, what's happening across the country. We have one more show that's happening next week before we go on hiatus for the new year. So please join us next week. It's going to be a fantastic show. It's going to be so much fun. And we really just had so much fun. And we want to continue to raise the voices and elevate the voices of parents across Newark, across New Jersey, and across the United States to make sure that we are using our authentic parent voices to make change for our families, because it's always all about our children. So thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I will see everyone next week, Tuesday at 6 p.m. Thank you. Have a good night.